Wow, what's this waiting line?
Oh, don't know. But Charles, here we are.
All right.
What is this waiting line?
We'll see in a second. Well, I guess it's for taxis.
Oh, really?
Let's see. Yeah, there is a taxi
I
stand.
don't think so.
Well,
Or maybe there was like a Knicks game or something.
right. Maybe that's it. Yeah.
It looks like more Knicks stuff.
It used to be fun to go to when we had a team.
I just want people to have a faith.
The New York Knicks, I think, are not performing particularly well. Anyway, here we are. This is Mike, Mayor de Blasio and Andrew Cuomo are saying that New York City is back. Now, this is the prime. We're going to go down here, right? This is the prime place that you run into when you come out of Penn Station. If you come here on a train, this is what you see. Right, this scape around us, these buildings that are way old.
This is also, Charles, where you and I came to explore on our very first walk around in the city, where...
Guy just accused me of being prejudiced.
Based on what?
I don't know.
Well, but this is also the spot where we got attacked.
I know.
Just kind of riding this escalator a little more than a year ago, coming down here, and the people who missed that video, it was quite clear that the guy was behind us.
Unhinged.
Just
Again, that's what happened just now. Here we have another one to your right. The anger here.
He's still yelling at us.
I know.
Is that him behind us here?
No. He's up at the top of the stair. He's just looking for an excuse to yell.
Right.
Right. He's standing there. He accused me. He asked me some question. I just walked by him. I think he said, either take my picture or don't take my picture, and I just ignored him. And he said, "You racist bastard! Your face is turning red. Look at you."
Wow.
So this is obvious. You look at this place. It is obvious. This is the world's capital of globalism. And look at the investment that's already been made in this terminal. Look at the cutting edge shops. Look at the.
Well, it's all the same ones they used to have, except some of them are out of business now.
Most of them are out of business, and the place it's not filthy the way it was last time. I think
we're not slipping on human feces today.
I was going to be more elliptical on that Brown-related topic, but yeah. This is. I'll reveal now that I'm back, but I went to Washington, D.C. on Thursday and Friday. We'll talk a little bit about some of the things I did. But I came back here, and when I was leaving in the morning, I went and ordered some food over there at Dunkin' Donuts. And
it's just Dunkin' now.
Well, it's still called Dunkin' Donuts, but they have these various people who will, as you're trying to pay for your food, they come up and they say, "Buy me some food."
Right.
Right?
Not working for Dunkin' Donuts, but just
No.
out there.
No.
What did that guy say?
I said, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" I don't know, you must be. It's that thing where you talk on your iPod
Oh, yeah.
phones and you can't really.
Well, now wait a minute. This was a whole food court even just the last time I was in here, and now it's closed.
Yeah, we could stop by another one, Jason. If
That's
you really.
amazing, Charles. I mean, this is like the busiest. This is normally any day of the week. There would be people going to the beach today, coming back, going to see people in New Jersey, Long Island, wherever. This is remarkably empty.
Right, and this is the Amtrak portion of the station. So this is the place that I went. I waited behind there, down that way. You see the Dunkin' over there? See, it still says Dunkin' Donuts. We may as well.
See, that's so weird to me because they've made this big corporate change. It's always a good idea to take one of the best-known brands in junk food and change it to something else.
Right.
But
Let's walk there and walk back just to give people. This is the main passenger waiting area for Amtrak in New York City. This is the main one. This is a Sunday. You would tend to see people
who have business tomorrow would be going to Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, elsewhere.
But I suppose Barack Obama was here earlier today skeet shooting. I mean, you could go skeet shooting here and you probably wouldn't hurt anybody. And
That's
think of the
amazing.
investment that has been made in the physical plant and equipment in Amtrak, and think about who was on the board of Amtrak.
Oh, yeah.
Who was the
wasn't
vice
it
chairman?
crackhead Hunter Biden?
It was. It was indeed. And so this is what you get. You know, if you put a crackhead on the vice chair of Amtrak, this is what you get. And Crazy Joe wants to take more of our children and grandchildren's money and invest it in plans to who knows what to improve this mess called Amtrak.
Well, they have the Moynihan train thing.
Right
But
across
what
the
is
way.
that for? Is that Amtrak or
That
something
is
else?
that's another hall. So here's the Dunkin' Donuts, officially called Dunkin' Donuts. Thursday morning I was here, early in the morning, and I was over there at Hudson News as well, and you witnessed lots of people just scurrying in and trying to get your money.
Yeah.
And not like humble about it. You know, walking up to you and
Where's
say,
the money you owe me, Charles?
right, exactly. Like that guy at the top of the escalator. I mean, he wasn't interested in any kind of dialogue. He just saw two white guys, he saw the camera, and he wanted to create a scene.
Time to go viral.
Yeah, and who knows, maybe people watching this thing later will be able to see what the guy actually said. I think I heard what he said, but why don't we go, speaking of Moynihan Hall, why don't we go up this way?
Yeah.
Now-
It's also nice, Charles, that this is going to be the first full week starting tomorrow that, according to President Dumb Joe and the Center for Dummy Control, you don't need the mask anymore.
Yeah.
In public or outside or inside.
Well, yeah, who knows, but I think the mayor and the governor have said, notwithstanding what CDC says, we're still in this city and in others, let's go on the escalator, going to need to wear a mask.
Well, wait a minute. So now he knows something the CDC doesn't know? I thought they're the ones who told them in the first place.
Well, you
That's
gotta follow the science, Jason. I mean,
So
come on.
they have now reduced stupidity to a science.
Right, exactly.
That's nice.
I have a PhD in stupid.
Yeah. That's true. All right.
So here we come out to this, frequently this exit has got normally a bunch of questionable looking people here.
kind of dangerous characters out here usually.
Yeah. But last
that
time,
bar is back to having.
yeah. Last time, there's the Moynihan train hall. That is due to be, I think, where you pick up Amtrak. But all the times I've taken Amtrak recently, it's in here.
I don't know why they needed that Moynihan train hall,
I don't know either.
but it's interesting to note that the bulk of that building is becoming Facebook office space.
Yep.
And
We could go.
was it Dianne Feinstein or Nancy Pelosi whose husband was involved in some deal to get
Feinstein's
the post office to sell all their real estate?
sell all their surplus real estate, exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to 460 West 34th Street.
Why are we going there, Charles?
Last week, there was increasing tension between Rand Paul
Oh yeah.
and Dr. Fraudy and Tucker Carlson and Dr. Fraudy. And the question is, what exactly were U.S. government interests doing funding potential gain of function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China? When did that start? What entities were doing it? And has Dr. Fauci been telling anybody the truth about all this?
Let me just take you back to the very top of this for a second, Charles, because this is another one of these scenarios where the language is critically important. Just like
Okay.
Black Lives Matter, just like any of these foundations that have these lofty and wonderful sounding names. Gain of function sounds pretty good. Why wouldn't you want to gain a function?
Right.
Unless your function is to be deadly.
Right,
Increase of deadliness would be perhaps a more accurate
right,
description.
exactly.
Less
Exactly.
popular though.
So, in connection with that to and fro, there's been a fair amount of reporting about a man named Peter Daszak. I think Peter, I may have the first name wrong. Peter
Massacre or
Daszak.
something? How is it pronounced?
Huh?
Do you know how it's pronounced? Dash?
Shithead, I think.
Oh, right. It's like that guy throat wobble a mangrove.
And so there's something called the EcoHealth Alliance, Inc. that this Peter guy, this Daszak guy has been running. And if you just Google, if I may not have gotten the first name right, so just Google Daszak, D-A-S-Z-A-K, with EcoHealth Alliance, and you will get to a whole bunch of articles where this guy is touted as an expert on, in theory, averting the spread of pandemics and pandemics generally, and has had all kinds of supposed expert opinions, because after all, he's a doctor. Now, when you check into him, he's a PhD. He's not a medical doctor. Yeah, another one like Chelsea Clinton dunce.
And Tedros and
Right.
Cottrell and all these faking liar losers.
Right. Now here we are, just as we're walking. This is 304 West 34th Street. So we're between 8th and 9th. And this center, this EcoHealth Alliance, spent quite a few years at 460 West 34th Street.
If they were involved in the stonks.
And we'll see for a second just how far west these are. There's another
Dunkin'.
Dunkin' is open, but the donuts are closed.
Oh yeah, look, see now it says Dunkin' down here and Dunkin' Donuts up here. This is one of the hugest mistakes. Like when I used to work for graphic designers and stuff, they get so bent out of shape when you do anything to the brand.
Right.
Mixing it like that, what the hell are they doing?
I know, mixing fonts and whatever.
Different names, confusing consumers. Is it Dunkin'? Is it Dunkin' Donuts?
Right. So we going back to the very beginning, and I did this for a reason when we got together in our first several presentations. And I insisted on doing a presentation on the business model of charity fraud. And so we found in the business model for charity fraud, there's several elements. The first is that you come up with a name and you use other names that are kind of similar.
Yeah.
You try to marry yourself to an organization that's been around for a long while.
And a person who won't testify against you.
Yeah, exactly. And you refuse to comply. You operate internationally, it's a red flag. From New York, another red flag, and you refuse to comply with any of the various... Let's just stop for a second. You said you're a blue faggot flag.
Something like that is what he said.
Yeah. Now that's hate speech on videotape.
From him to us.
Right.
But he's fine.
Yeah.
Nothing will happen to him.
No, he just threatened us. He said you'd do something about it.
Threatened us.
Yeah, I know. So we'll just stay away from him. He's probably making his way to his apartment.
The next day in his pathetic life.
Yeah. Well, you just got to watch out. People like that are obviously
Look at all this
certifiably
stuff
nuts.
out of business here, Charles.
Yeah.
People who aren't familiar with this area, 34th Street. I mean, this is like a major.
Right.
Anyway, you were saying-
You go down the different red flags. A New York-based entity that with a series of names that sound interesting but don't seem to bear up, that don't comply with local laws, and i.e. that don't have the full filings in New York, the determination letter, the articles of incorporation, any amendments, the bylaws, the real determination letter, any amendments, none of that stuff, real audits, 990s that make any kind of sense.
That aren't forged.
Right. Other things that are forged, and you look at all this, hey, here's B&H, why are we here?
Why is it closed? It's usually open on Sunday.
I don't know.
And there's a lot of radio interference here right now.
All right, well, we'll almost be across.
Is it some kind of Jewish holiday?
You're
I
asking
guess
me?
it is. It says it's closed.
And I would know because I went to Horace Manor.
I don't know.
Let's just
There's a
wait.
lot of radio interference right now.
All right, well, let's hope it doesn't blast it too much.
Here, that diner went out. Ooh,
Yeah.
that's.
Yeah, Skylight? No, I think it's
Oh,
open.
it's still there, but there was some other restaurant in the corner there.
So this EcoHealth Alliance came into focus because of reporting back and forth, where Tucker Carlson did a series of segments calling out Dr. Fraudy for his role in all this and
Asking for a criminal investigation.
right, and in response to which, of course, the PH Ditz, Chelsea Clinton, goes on various social media and demands that Tucker Carlson be canceled from social media for asking any questions about Dr. Fraudy, Dr. Fauci, whatever
Right.
you want to call him.
He's above
Right.
criticism.
So that caused me to, as happened when you got kicked out of CPAC, that
Yeah.
caused me yesterday morning to say, now wait a minute, what the hell is this
EcoHealth Alliance.
EcoHealth Alliance? And that's when I discovered that I think it is another fraud.
I was going to say, let me guess.
It's another fraud, I think. It began life in Pennsylvania in 1976 as the Wildlife Preservation Trust International. And then in 2000, it switched to being Wildlife Preservation Trust, originally in Massachusetts, but operating from New York. Then they changed their name in 2010 to EcoHealth Alliance. Now, as we've explained to people in the past, if you are a validly organized and operated federally tax exempt entity, you actually have to not only, if you change your name, you've got to amend your articles of incorporation, you've got to amend your bylaws, and if you change your name to engage in purposes that are radically different than what you were originally authorized to be, you have to seek IRS approval, and you have to get that in advance.
Obvious, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it should be obvious, yeah, but in this case, so far, I find no record. Tomorrow, I'm going to be contacting them. I find no record of a Form 1023, original one. I find what looks to me like a fraudulent determination letter dated in December 2010, which appears to be a response to a question from somebody running the thing as to the current status of the organization. But as in other things that we've seen, the stationery looks suspect, the fake signature looks suspect.
Different fonts.
Yeah, there are all kinds of problems. But more to the...
Somebody at the IRS is drunk, typing it on 4 different typewriters.
Yeah, can you get that handwriting machine out that we used to use?
Cutting out letters from magazines and gluing them on there.
Exactly. We should do that, Jason. It was ransom. Here's our determination
letter.
But anyway, so then again, I've spent less than 3 hours on it. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying I haven't done the kind of comprehensive work I like to do to really, huh?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. But I will be. Now I think this is the building here as against 460, where they operated this EcoHealth Alliance. We're going to see in a second. They moved to 528th.
But also look at this, Charles, Alice's Garden. What is that?
It's a wildlife conservation area.
I mean, I'm not kidding. I think it is. It's something, right?
Who knows?
I haven't really seen this before. It's dedicated to the memory of Alice Perskian.
What is it?
It's dedicated to the memory of Alice Perskian, who cared for the garden until her death in 2010.
It's Parsekian, probably.
And we got somebody coughing in my face over here.
That's all right.
Yeah. I don't mind.
He's been drinking all day.
Exactly. It'll build my immune system.
So this is the kind of place when you want to have a serious foundation, you want to operate in a building like this over here. You know, all the stores are out on 10th Avenue.
Yeah, this is sketch, by the way.
And back in 2010, these buildings were not even in progress.
Yeah, nobody was coming over here.
Yeah. So then I've developed a few tricks up my sleeves, not so much up my sleeves.
Radio interference.
All right, so let's cross.
Yeah, watch out for this edge.
Want to do it quickly? It's going to be.
Yeah.
Is that better?
I think so.
So we want to go back that way, or maybe show people the other way, Jason. To show them down that way. See, there's a whole bunch of gigantic, new, expensive buildings. Who knows who's actually going to buy into them and want to live over here? This is the kind.
Chinese people.
Well, yeah, this is the kind of place that is ideal for laundering money. I mean, what you do is you bring in, you invest in an LLC, you turn around and you buy an apartment over here, but you're not near anything.
Yeah.
Reasonable. And there are no restaurant to speak of, no restaurants, no. Evidently, the stores are closed.
To be fair, though, for the past 10 or so years, they've been trying to build up the west side. I mean, is there going to be a subway line over here?
I think there is, and that is indeed 460 West, by the way. So, turning then to EcoHealth Alliance.
So they're in there?
They moved. We're going to show you their new home at 528th. And then we're going to show you, we'll save it to the end, but we're going to show you the home, the pristine address of their world-class, non-wildlife related accounting firm.
Oh, well, it is kind of wildlife
I
related.
was hoping you wouldn't go there until the end. So Ortel's second law, I'm joking now, is that when you look at 990s, the cover page of a 990, which is the...
But let's explain to people who maybe just joined us, that the 990 is the IRS equivalent of a
1040.
for a nonprofit corporation.
Right. And it's actually much more detailed, and unlike the 1040, your personal tax return, the 990 is by definition available to the public, normally online. And, bless you.
Thanks. Did you smell some weird perfume or something over there?
I don't know. And the only thing that tends to be confidential on a 990 is the identities of the major donors who are set forth in Schedule B, unless
they make a mistake and publish it.
Right.
Which they have.
Well, of course, yeah, because not many of these fraudsters are all that smart. So a simple thing for people who are not versed in accounting but do try to keep track of their net worth and their annual revenues and expenses, there's two ways to track how you're doing in a given reporting period. One is to add up all your revenues and all your expenses using what is called the accrual method. In other words, it's not your cash expenses, it's expenses and any obligations, it's revenue and any accounts receivable, and you look at how much loss or profit did I make in a given year. So that's one set of tests that is done independently of another set of tests which says at the beginning of the year, what were my assets, again using accrual, and what were my liabilities, and therefore what was my net worth at the beginning of the year. Then the change in your profit or loss in a given year should lead you to your net worth at the end of the year. And it's not that it should be off so that it's okay to be off by 10 cents. It should be exactly equal. And even if you have a stupid account, I mean really stupid account, you should notice in the draft that you're working up, typically the approach is if it's really done correctly, the way foundations are supposed to be done. They're controlled by the management, not by the accountants. So the management whips up these financial statements, presents a draft to the accountant, and the accountant goes back and forth, and if you're doing good work, stress tests your work as the management and says, no, your revenues weren't 6 million, they were 6,122,000 because you forgot this. And no, your travel expenses weren't 2 million, they were 1.9.
Somebody gave you a free jet.
Well, and what they do is they, if it's done properly, for the major elements of revenue and expense and assets and liability, they try to get what are called confirmation letters. So they will go to the biggest customers or donors and they'll say,
the accountant will
send a letter saying, we have in our records that you began the year owing us X, that during the year you made a grant to Y, and at the end of the year you owe us Z.
And that's the moment where some donor will be like, wait a minute, no,
exactly.
I didn't, I gave that to the foundation. Not
right. And similarly, you might send a confirmation, if the entity has a mortgage, you might send a confirm letter to the lender and saying, at the beginning of the year, our client claims he has debt of this and paid interest of that and payments of this, and that they're current, please confirm these amounts. And that's just, it's not rocket science, it's very simple arithmetic. There are some entries that are more complicated, but in the main, it's as simple as that. So when you look on the first page, you don't have to go to page 265, you don't have to go buried into a footnote, you just go to the first freaking page of a 990, and it shows you what did the client claim it had by way of profit or loss, and it shows you the beginning net worth and the ending net worth, and the change should reconcile to the profit shown or lost for the year. So one tell when you look at a 990 that there's something wrong is when it's not signed and it's not dated by the accountant.
Because then someone's not actually taking personal responsibility for having...
Right, or they're providing a copy to a state regulator, like as in New York.
That's
like
it's totally safe to have a...
Or it's probably somebody getting a subway.
Unattended suitcase, right?
Yeah.
That's the type of thing the police could take away and search for being a bomb.
Right. So people around the world in this country, if you're looking for a nice place to locate your business, don't come here. Particularly this part of New York is just not sensible. Anyway, so I checked the 990s that are shown from June, for the period through 30 June 2010 year by year through 30 June 2019, Jason. So that is actually 10 full years of 990s. I checked them this morning myself. In how many years did the net profit shown in the activities foot to the change in net profit, net worth shown in the balance sheet in those 10 years, would you guess?
If this were a game show, Charles, I would guess 0.
You would win. And Jason, you've won the $10,000 opening prize.
A friend of mine actually just won with the Monty Hall shirt.
Let's make a deal.
Yeah, he won 2 Alfa Romeo. He won like $96,000 worth of cars.
And then the bad news on that is you got to
No,
pay
he's
income.
selling them.
You got to pay income tax
But
on the
he'll,
gross proceeds.
but he'll sell the cars.
I know. I'm just saying. You when you get a
Look
non-cash
good on
gift.
Instagram. I'll tell you that.
I used to like that show. But anyway, so you have to be really bad to get that wrong. That's normally a simple check is
Leave the weed, Charles.
a simple check is this is I think did we leave from this once?
We've rented cars there, yeah.
So a simple check that any bonehead can do to see whether the statement is correct is to just do that check, and in 10 out of 10 cases, it's all wrong.
10
Right.
years, I mean, that's not a mistake.
Right, and we won't reveal yet who the vaunted better accounting firm is that has done the reports since 2018 forward, but the old one, don't, because we're going to head over there.
This is the scene of the crime of Cuomo's award.
Oh, is that right?
Statuette. I wonder if saying those things will now cause this video to become evidence.
So the first page is all wrong, okay? Then you look into and we're going to write this up. It may be ready Wednesday, it may be ready Sunday or next Wednesday, but when you look in the 990, they're asked to discuss, you're asked to explain what your major program service expenses are. Now this thing was supposed to be a wildlife preservation trust, i.e. a place where elephants are protected and rhinoceroses are protected around the world and different things. But they switch by 2010, according to the report, into studying how to alleviate the spread of pandemics, beginning in 2010, specifically in early years in China.
Well, that's close to the same thing.
Not at all.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and the point being, though, when Fraudy gets up there and says, I didn't give the money in Wuhan,
Yeah.
it's possible that he didn't,
Right.
but other elements of the U.S. government did. And here's where this whole exercise is very helpful to the process, believe it or not, of disciplining the Clinton Foundation. Because you go into New York State and you discover that in the New York State Charity Bureau, these idiots have in fact partially filed information for periods starting through, well, earlier, the ones I examined, through 2010 June and forward. And in all but about 2 or 3 years, they disclose the major league government grants that go to this fraudulent charity.
Big league.
And we are talking, when you add all the grants up, you're talking about the ones that are disclosed, you're talking the order of, I don't know, 70, 80, $100 million. With the biggest known one so far, and we don't have key years, so this is a conservative estimate, the biggest known grantor is USAID.
Which is the CIA. And by the way, you know where we are right now, Charles?
Where?
This is the former location of 21st Century 3D.
Is there a
Worldwide
plaque?
Yes, it says GFP. Oh, wow. That's not the real estate company that used to own the building.
Well, so where this new
Tennis
EcoHealth.
courts oh, it's already out. Wait.
Yeah, I thought. Forgive me.
But so the weed place stays there in front of the
So
tennis.
520 is where this EcoHealth Alliance is now.
Huh.
And so I was starting to say the major donor is the USAID, but in addition you have the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, you have the National Science Foundation, you have Fauci's, I think, operation. But the major money is coming from the USAID and the Department of Defense. And even in this case of this hopelessly run charity, they somehow manage in 70% of the years I examined or thereabouts to actually fill out the forms on government grants and show that roughly 80-85% of their incoming revenue is from government grants from the US. In contrast, the Clinton Foundation, which has in the same period massive amounts of government grants, doesn't give you any information about the foreign government grants. And why do you think that is?
Balancing it out with, well, it would be illegal.
Exactly, because if you're a public charity and a substantial portion of your activity is funded by foreign governments, you're acting as an agent for a foreign government, and you're not allowed to do that as a charity.
It's not even a FARA thing. You just
It is where you can't do it as a matter of a charity. You're also in violation of FARA, and I would point out, which is the Foreign Agents Registration Act, and I would point out that that is the act which was used against Anna Chapman, the Russian spy. It was
Flynn.
used in Flynn. It was used in the impeachment trial. But in this case, with the Clintons, you're not going to use it. Here's GFP again. So this is.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this is not exactly. Again, 21st century 3D is over there. This is not the fanciest neighborhood in New York to put your company. I got that office because it was cheap.
You don't think this is fancy, Jason?
Well,
I mean, compared to Calcutta, it's pretty
right.
nice.
Fancy is in the eye of the beholder, Charles. But this is, I mean, famously a dump around here.
Yeah. Is that now we want to watch out for the? Don't we get interference up here at 37th?
I think we got to just go wherever we're going to go and deal with it as it happens. I just really quickly want to mention, Charles, that I'm temporarily not doing our live streams when we walk around on Rumble and Odyssey because I only have so many.
Do you want to go up to 42nd Street?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
I can only do so many simultaneous live streams. So this is going out on Crowdsource the Truth 3, Crowdsource the Truth Forever, and the awesome new Sunday with Charles YouTube channel. And
Let's go.
there's some near accident about to happen here.
Look at this guy. It's aggressively asking for shit.
But in the middle of the street while the light is green.
Yeah.
So there's a
Do you
lot
want to
going
change
on.
any money, Jason? I'm sure we'll get a competitive rate right here.
Change it in.
Get some euros.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, so you were saying that they're not enforcing FARA unless they want to.
Right, and I believe that one of the senior Department of Justice attorneys now is the person who, under Obama, was in charge of enforcing FARA, and thereby, I think, in charge of letting Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Chelsea Clinton and everybody else skate. So, what could possibly go wrong? Now,
Always a good question.
while we now navigate over to the eastern side of the city, perhaps we should pay tribute and homage, or personage, or whatever the right phrase is in this politically correct era, to the art department. Because we have not talked about, I think you painted Joe in a very flattering way.
Well, he's Leatherface this week, Charles. This is Joe Biden's Chainsaw Massacre, and we can see him there skewering our once great United States. He's drawn blood.
And the rest of the world. I mean, the United States
Right.
market is the biggest economic market in the world, and when you blow that up, what you're doing is you're blowing up business opportunities for companies all over the place, and not to mention opportunities and livelihoods here.
Blow it up from a detonation standpoint.
But what I loved is some pundits were writing last week, and they were saying that Jimmy Carter, that Joe Biden is starting to look like he's as bad as Jimmy Carter, and Trump apparently from his new website said no. Jimmy Carter was at least competent.
Yeah.
Joe Biden is completely incompetent, and is far worse already than
I agree.
than Jimmy Carter
He's going to be the worst president we've ever had.
in modern history. Yeah, I don't know. There's some early. Was it war?
I'll tell you, Charles,
Yeah. Careful.
it's not getting any better. All
Well,
this nonsense from
Well, there was stories apparently about how the murder rate is rising here in New York and in other cities, and also during the daylight murder rate.
I think that bothers people.
No, that's just
Murder?
Nah, murder? Why not? But that's that's probably. Thank you. That's why no doubt De Blasio is looking at this and saying it's always It's always a great sign to have a bum shuffling along the street like your hat. That makes me feel really good. Like the time I was walking down past this garbage truck, and these guys got off of it, and I thought they were going to mug me. And they said to me, "Nice suit, man."
Maybe that one.
Anyway,
Yep. Oh my
but
God.
I do like the hat, and I don't care
Yeah,
whatever
the
you
hat's
think.
very popular.
Yeah. So it's actually very practical as well in this heat.
Right.
You noticed also, Jason, I didn't wear the overcoat.
Say again?
I didn't wear the heavier coat today.
I did notice that, and I think that was a good decision.
Yeah.
It's definitely warming up.
It is.
This is new, blue maize. This looks nicer than most restaurants that are normally over here. Authentic Mexican. I would have had lunch there at the office if it was open.
Uh-huh. Would you have gotten a psychic reading?
No, probably not. At
Yeah.
least maybe I would have been able to predict the closure if I had done that. So
Well,
it could
they-
have been a good business decision.
I mean, they should be in the business of calling you up and saying, "Thank you for deciding to come over here in 5 minutes. We'll see you then." But
The psychics, right?
yeah, if they know everything.
I mean, I'll tell you, Charles, I've noticed that bong stores are very successful now.
Right next to the New York Times, which
Yeah,
explains
that
how they
explains
generate
the
their fake
writing.
news.
Yeah. So, that's actually interesting. So the New York Times, James O'Keefe is suing them with, Project Veritas. He said, they came out with this whole story that he was doing something with enemies of Trump to set them up and whatever. And it's curious to note that some of the same idiots that I pegged as idiots the second they showed up on the social media scene are involved in this story.
Right.
And the New York Times is essentially doing the exact same thing that social engineers do to me. They're doing it to James O'Keefe. It's a playbook, Charles.
Well, also, I think I sent you a story this morning, or early afternoon, about the New York Times admitting that there is a network of private scoundrels who are providing information to media to turn the media into political assassins. You see that
that's
story?
what I've been saying.
No,
Yes,
I know.
I did see it, and that's also what I've been saying for the past 4 years. And it's amazing to me the people who not crowdsource the truth viewers, but people who know me, who think I'm a conspiracy theorist or whatever they think. will see
Let's stand
something-
over here so we can.
They'll see something like that and be like, "Oh, look at this."
Right.
And it's
So
like,
I think we have now you have a growing audience, and here we are in front of the New York Times, and I think we should try to help them sell some of their Sunday papers. Okay.
How?
Well, you wouldn't want to read the Sunday New York Times because that's hazardous to your health. But these days, with the high cost of paper to make kitty litter, it is much cheaper to buy the New York Times and use that as kitty litter for your cat, or if you use that for dogs as well. And you have the added pleasure of encouraging your dogs and cats to do their business on the New York Times and then throw it away every week. So I'm just trying to help them get more sales.
Boost sales, right.
Boost sales.
Bird
But
cage,
I have to.
liners, etc.
I have to say, there was a guy who he's no longer at the New York Times called Joe Nocera, who had me in here in 2009 to talk about GE, and he was wrong in his conclusion, but very fair-minded in his my analysis of GE that went out, I want to say March 9th, 2009 or thereabouts, and it was got a lot of attention because the headline was something, GE is in trouble, ! And then it was about me, and they talked to Immelt and others who tried to rebut my stuff. And Nocera's conclusion was more one of those nice on the one hand and on the other. On the one hand, Charles Ortel raises some interesting points, but on the other hand, GE is systemically important, and chances.
Keep walking and see if it carries on. Maybe this will be back to that new problem. But if it doesn't carry on, it becomes a huge problem. Hopefully it will.
All right,
Let's see if we're back. It takes about a minute for the...
no problem.
I think it's back.
All right. So just staying for a second on GE and what drives its performance, its fundamental performance. Many of its products and projects are projects whose rate of return benefits as oil prices go up, because you're replacing an old engine with a new, more fuel-efficient engine. You're replacing this type of power plant with a more efficient power plant, et cetera, et cetera. So when oil prices and the trajectory, expected future trajectory of those prices, energy prices, are like this, you would expect GE's business to really rocket upwards. Instead, a year ago when GE was at 6, oil price in the US was negative, which is unusual.
Yeah, well, never before, right?
Right. Well, maybe a long time ago that we don't know about, but not in recent history. And now oil prices are up at 60 or thereabouts. So in that environment, you would have expected GE to do a lot better than go from 6 to 13, and it hasn't. It just seems to be one of those things. It's like, I don't know, a relationship that you had once and then you try to rekindle it and it falls apart the second time. Shame on you the third time, and nothing's going to change, right?
Yeah.
GE is like your 8th attempt to rekindle interest, investing in a diversified conglomerate of who knows what actually exists inside of it, and who knows what kind of liabilities are attached to it, run by a bunch below the top level of very mediocre people who make money, it seems, win or lose, whether the shareholders win or lose.
That's the biggest problem.
Yeah.
They've got no consequences. Anybody who has no consequences is obviously
No real skin in the game.
Right.
No, it should be that if you're going to have these supercharged management compensation approaches, it should be that when you get these special options and you get these special bonuses and benefits, if the company gets sued, you pay that first out of your pocket. If the SEC comes, you pay that first out of your pocket. Then you'd have a different approach to, heads I win, tails you lose.
It's the same thing with somebody like Cuomo. He should not have, or a federal judge. None of these people should have liability or indemnity for liability, and the pharmaceutical companies as well. Anybody who's indemnified from liability is not going to be too worried about a mistake.
Yeah. Let's ignore this guy. Ho Chi Minh.
So GE.
Yeah, so now we're heading closer and closer to, don't give it away yet, to the office location of the accounting firm chosen by the august trustees or directors of EcoHealth Alliance. Now, I would also mention that there's a company called EcoHealth Alliance Partners, and I haven't checked yet to see what that's all about, what relationship it may have.
We should also double check that they're not up to something screwy with regard to Echo and the Bunnymen.
I don't know what that is.
It's a band from the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Or the 90s.
Yeah, I know nothing about that. So,
Well, here we are, Charles, back in Times Square.
indeed.
Who will be naked begging for money today?
Well, the naked cowboy is probably not out. It's way too warm.
I think he's out no matter what. And also you have the violence-prone and aggressive Marvel Comics and Disney characters.
Right. Always great role models for your children.
A lot of Weed World trucks hanging out.
Yeah, and a year ago we were standing here in the center of Times Square with no cars, no people. Remember that?
I know.
This is one of the main subway stations here. For many different lines go through at Times Square. Later at night you tend to see, as it gets dark, a lot of dangerous characters hanging out around here.
I don't know if I've been outside after dark since I've returned from my road trip. I've just been kind of...
Well, on Friday I was, and it was amazing. I got here around 10 o'clock, and the number of people sprawled on the street, up to no good, smoking weed, drunk.
What's legal now?
Drunk. I'm not sure it's legal. Watch yourself.
It's mandatory, isn't it?
What is?
It's mandatory. Weed.
Can I buy you one of those?
I don't really ever eat anything from those filthy little tinfoil wrap stands because
get
if
it
you
on
see
your-
where they store them at night.
You got a rat on a stick.
Now, what is this? Kermit the Frog advertising condoms?
Stan Smith, this was the original Adidas.
But what is this?
These are the original. This is
What's
the,
he holding?
I don't know. Plastic waste. But that was the original Stan Smith Adidas sneaker, which now people, I think that came together in 1972 or thereabouts. This is the Kermit the Frog edition. You know, people who buy tennis sneakers are really into and play tennis really want to have Kermit the Frog on their sneaker, because Kermit was a renowned tennis player.
Yeah. So Charles, what do you think is going to happen with regard to these calls? I mean, it's not Rand Paul saying that there should be a criminal investigation into Fauci, is it? It's Tucker Carlson.
Well, I think it's fair. I mean, what we have here,
I think it's necessary.
yeah, it's mandatory. I mean, what we have is the biggest known disruption in the global economy in the history of the world, occasioned by these unelected bureaucrats.
Two things. First of all, look at this mess.
That's
Second
art.
of all, look, a Weed World. Oh no, that's also Weed World. I thought it was a Weed World competitor. It's just a different graphic treatment for the truck.
Yeah, but this is the kind of, like,
I mean, that's terrible.
when you're paying a lot of money for taxes in a city like New York, it's obvious that this is what you want to see. I mean, I think we should have another captioned piece of artwork. What would you call this?
Well, this could be a non-fungible token. We could sell this for millions of dollars.
No, it could be, what this could be is Sunday brunch
It's de
in New York.
Blasio's art.
It's Sunday brunch in New York.
Yes. It's a buffet. And then, so now WeWorld has some new truck. I don't know if we've seen that truck before. That's huge.
It says clinics.
Is a clinic?
This is Weed World Clinics.
Oh my God. Oh boy. So now they're going to be. Well, here's another one, Charles.
These are candies. Clinics,
Wow.
candies.
Why are they allowed to do this? I mean, they've parked these vehicles. Nobody else runs a business like this in New York City.
I don't know. Yes, weed deliver.
I mean, are these things paying tax?
I don't know. It's a nice little pocket park.
I like this sculpture here of the Jenga Man or whatever that is.
Yeah, this is actually a nice little corner of New York. You see the difference between this and what we saw on 8th and 9th and 10th Avenues. Right?
Yes.
I mean, there's a noticeable difference. That's Bank of America, a very large bank.
And then Salesforce is around here somewhere.
Right here.
Salesforce Tower. And
Get some watches, Jason.
yeah, well, so we're continuing though east on 34th
Right to 3rd
Street,
Avenue.
right? Okay, all right. So yeah, Fauci doesn't seem to be too concerned about it.
They had an imitation of him on Saturday Night Live last night.
I
It's
saw
pretty good.
that, yeah.
Is that Kate McKinnon?
Yeah.
She's funny as hell.
She is good.
She had the hand movement.
Yeah, I don't think she imitates him quite as well as I do, but that's okay. Her wig looked good, and she's closer in size.
Is she really short?
Well, I don't know, but she's tiny and skinny and kind of like Fauci. The thing that was interesting is that Rand Paul was referring to a paper that was written by the Chinese researcher that named Fauci as funding her research.
Right. Yeah. And again, the issue shouldn't be to tie necessarily Fauci alone to the funding of this research and to what was going to plan for how we would deal with the pandemic. The issue should be how much U.S. government money was or was not spent preparing for this eventuality. What research was done? What did that research conclude and when? How much of this did Fauci know about? And why were we taken by surprise come March 2020 last year? Now what's going on here, Jason?
Yeah, what is going on here? The cops.
They must be expecting a demonstration.
Perhaps this is somewhere they can stand and do nothing for an extended period of time without anybody. So there we see a police officer violating department policy. No uniformed police officer is supposed to use tobacco products in public.
That's the strategic response group. There's probably...
And they are supposed to enforce the law and protect people. So they're busy doing what they're not supposed to do. And whenever I've asked them to do anything along the lines of enforcing the law or defending me from getting assaulted, they got no time for that.
Right. Right. Well, you're just one of their better customers, and so you should be persecuted. That's the way. All good businesses are run that way. You punish all your customers, then you persecute your best customers. And that's the way you create a global brand, a powerhouse brand. That's the way you do it. At least that's the way government seems to work. So here we are at the New York Public Library, a place I used to spend.
I think they announced that it's open.
Oh, is it open?
The other day, yeah.
I'll have to come back to it
When
then.
they said that you don't need masks if you are indoors or outdoors, they also said the libraries are open.
I will check and see when we walk by here.
So anybody who wants to interact with insane people, there's
Could
another
just walk around.
opportunity available.
Could just walk around New York City the way we are.
Well, or you could just wait in the library and they'll come to you.
Oh yeah. You referring to the workers or the?
No,
Yes,
just
they're
a
both.
litany of insane people that seem to always be in there.
It's sad. I mean, mental health is a very tough thing to deal with, and we're seeing a meltdown in it with Joe Biden and the people around him.
I've been seeing a meltdown in mental health in the form of lawsuits against me for the past 4 years.
Right, and that's obviously concerning and regrettable, but it's, I mean, you're starting to have, like we talked about it last walk around, this guy, I think his name is Alan Jones, who's a respected Australian broadcaster, just taking the wood to Biden. A story today in the paper saying evidently the Chinese have decided that with Biden firmly in, now they can actually defeat the United States.
Oh, well, of course.
And while the lawsuits
they
are,
already have. Look around.
while the lawsuits are bad, and hopefully you'll win them in the end, if this country is trashed
Yeah,
by,
they're not going to matter very much.
you could just put the lawsuit thing on stall and wait to see whether we're crushed by the Chinese Communist Party, which event will have bigger problems.
Yeah. Well, Charles, I mean, it's hard to deny that that's happening.
Well, we're certainly not seeing what I would call economic progress. We're seeing more and more people getting laid off. We're
Right.
seeing a lot
Bad
of
jobs
anger,
numbers, right?
horrible job numbers.
Right.
We're seeing bad.
Joe Biden was surprised by that.
Well, yeah, I was surprised by. Why are you calling me Joe? Well, that's your name. Really? How do you know that? You trying to angle for a franchise?
Not angry for a franchise. I'm just trying to. There's so many things that I'm trying to keep straight while we do these broadcasts. Not getting run over or attacked being just one. There's not a lot of traffic around today, really, for a spring Sunday.
Yep. Now these stores had been all taken out. Here you see Dunkin' Donuts, not Dunkin',
Right, very weird.
but a bunch of them had gone. And up ahead, Jason, on the left, that tall building, there's going to be an outdoor elevator going all the way up to the top.
Seems
like-
pretty scary.
Let me think of the thing I definitely don't want to do today. That's it.
Go on an outdoor elevator.
Yeah. And here we have the How to Destroy McDonald's program. In front of most McDonald's in the city, you have somebody like this entrepreneur blocking the entrance to the McDonald's, eating and imploring you for either money or more food. Yeah. And or
McDonald's
both.
is not a place that anybody should eat, in my opinion.
I don't know. From time to time, I like McDonald's. I used to like the coffee, but it's been a long, long time since I've been into either McDonald's or Starbucks for anything, and I'm unlikely to return.
I'm with you on that. The other thing that they're going to have, I don't know, what is this building, Charles? Because they have one of these glass floors that you can stand on and look down like 1,200 feet and freak yourself out.
Yeah, this is I think one Vanderbilt place. It's a very smart building, well built. It seems from the outside, and extremely well located if you're commuting in from the northern New York suburbs or from Connecticut. So it's certain to attract a fair amount of interest in time. But I bet a lot of people are looking at the tax picture here at federal level, at state level, at city level, and are saying, now, wait a minute, before we sign a 5, 10, 20-year lease in this building, let's figure out whether how badly punished our employees are going to be for working from an office here, because you're going to have to pay city, state, and federal tax.
And not only that, Charles, aren't companies right now, based on the fact that they've been forced for a year to conduct what is a successful experiment in something that they might have otherwise never tried, to the extent that an office building like this could be obsolete?
Yeah. Except, of course, for government offices, right? The government workers will definitely pile in here.
And then be not available after 1 p.m.
Right. At all.
Right, so you can't call them.
Can't criticize them.
And they have an office, but they're working from home. I mean, this is so Madison Avenue and 42nd Street for stuff to be out of business here. Oh, look, and there's Price Waterhouse. Are we in the accounting district or something?
That is. That's Price Waterhouse. Yeah, there are a bunch of... we can just go reasonably slower. I mean, just don't have to run. There we go. 1, 2... I mean, it's really sad, frankly, to see people like this. I mean, I wonder if that guy's even alive. See this guy?
Whoa. Yeah.
I mean, that's sad. The guy has very clearly been on the street for a long time. And it's really the liberals, the progressives, the Bidens, et cetera, who are the heartless ones, not saying, as a priority in our major cities. 80% of the U.S. population is located in cities. We spend a tremendous amount of government. We should be able to go and identify these different people and do our best to find out what's wrong with them and then try to help them. But that's not what they do.
At least the unconscious ones.
Yeah, and the nearly dead ones. Shout out to Schwab. This is where branch that I use, and I have to say I really enjoy it. We're not taking advertising from Schwab, but they do great work, frankly, when you're buying and selling stocks and other things. The reports are great, the execution's great, it's not expensive.
Wow, that guy's in there checking the stocks, lying down.
That's the Chase private client.
Well, that's why he's in there waiting to speak to his broker.
Right, to Jamie Dimon.
But joking aside, Charles, I mean, seriously, there's a certain percentage of the homeless population, I get it, that they don't want to go to a shelter, they don't want to be...
Well, the shelters are dangerous.
They're dangerous, and I've heard now some interviews with homeless people where they say that they want to go through all their stuff and that they take control of their lives and everything. And I get it, why somebody would want to subject themselves to that. But in the case of somebody like that, who is passed out on the street, subject to death at any moment if a car just has a small accident and hits the curb, why don't they have some program to collect those people, put them in the hospital, put them somewhere where, obviously that's not somebody who can make a decision for themselves.
Or put it slightly differently, if Fauci, Fraudy, and the others can mandate that every American, including little babies, has to wear a mask, you can control your decision as to how you deal with COVID. In the same breath, why aren't those people saying it's a very severe risk to his health and maybe to health at large if that person's infected with worse than COVID, to have that person on the side of the street in the center of a very crowded city where a lot of people are walking by him. If he's got an infectious disease, isn't that a health threat? And why aren't we doing something about it?
Yeah, it's obvious, the answer to why. But if we say it, the videos get struck.
Right.
Now let's talk, I don't know if you're prepared to talk about this, Charles.
It depends what this is, Jason.
What's going on in Arizona? They've been saying that various known journalism outlets are reporting that databases are deleted and things. I don't know if that's true or not, but what have you heard? What do you think? Where is that thing going?
Well, we're now in a place, it's now May, obviously, so I don't want these all these sandbags, I don't know why. Must be a benefit here. Hillary Clinton's coming.
Sandbag Cipriani.
Well, Hillary Clinton's giving a benefit, and they want to have ample protection for her when she barfs up the Chardonnay. They want it to be soaked up by the sandbag.
Love the city.
But I'm making that up, guys and ladies and other pronouns. We're now 4 months after the inauguration, and I guess the Democrats and the Biden administration probably believe that they can run the string out until November 2022, and so it's safe, maybe they view, to allow people to challenge the results. And we're seeing, not just in Arizona, we're seeing in Wisconsin, in New Hampshire, in Michigan, in to a lesser extent in Georgia, we're seeing people go back over this and say, now, wait a minute, what we were told that on the Dominion machines that they couldn't be interfered with remotely using the internet, that apparently is not true.
How do we know that?
Well, because that's the most recent revelation out of Arizona. That,
Is it?
Yeah, well, that supposedly between the time that the machines, people were on notice that they had to turn them over to the audit committee, and the time they went to the audit committee, files were remotely deleted off the machines. How does that work? And again, when I think about contesting a result, if you say, as happened in November 2000, that it's a cliffhanger, hanging chads,
Yeah.
and who knows who really won, by all means have a recount. But if your position, which is the Biden position, the Democrat position, is that it was a landslide and popular mandate,
Why would they be worried about
Right.
auditing it?
Exactly. And so you don't need to be even twice as smart as Joe Biden, which would be really
Still
stupid.
zero, yeah.
Really stupid. You don't have to be that stupid to look at this and say the people are behaving as if there's a lot to hide, while now at the same time, Mark Elias, or Elias, however you pronounce his name, is representing somebody who lost, I think, in, I want to say New Hampshire, who is using all the arguments that the Trump people used to argue for recount, while at the same time this Elias is saying, using the same arguments, that there should be no recounts in the swing states that Trump.
This is what lawyers do.
Yeah. All right, so we're getting close to 3rd Avenue. I can't see yet where we are. Nice, careful. Where we are by way of street address, but we're looking for a certain address, which we can reveal is 655 3rd.
Well, here's 3rd Ave.
So I think if we make a right, we'll find out that it's that way.
People who really, really know New York can tell you based on the address where it is on the avenue.
Yeah.
That's tricky.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. What do we have right there? 655, right on the corner. This is
You
it,
are
Joe.
such a great straight man, Jason. Let's wait. I don't want to run. So this is 655 3rd Avenue, right? So here we have 655 3rd Avenue, a fine old building. It's been around for a long time. Now, if you're operating EcoHealth Alliance and you need a really, really superbly shitty accountant because you don't want the accountant to figure out what you're actually doing, who do you pick, Jason?
I would look for one with a pet tiger.
Yes. And so what you would pick is a firm whose early reports in the period June 30th, 2010, 12 months through June 30th, 2010, through the 12 months through June 2017, what you would want is to use that firm and compound the error by staying and continuing working with the idiotic firm that buys that firm, and that idiotic firm is none other than BKD. When I heard EcoHealth Alliance, the first thing I did is I looked up a 990 or two, and then I tried to get the most recent 990 on ProPublica, and thinking that I had hit the 990 thing, I open it up and I see BKD's initials. I'm like, what the hell is this? That's the most recent audit, is BKD.
Unbelievable.
And as is the case of the Clinton Foundation, BKD appears to be in the business of issuing audit opinions to entities that don't actually exist. And they get away with it because they're a big firm, and I've come to the conclusion that accounting boards are not really in the business of disciplining the big firms who are engaged in the most egregious behavior.
Particularly when the guy who's the head of the whole thing is the CEO, right? What is Eric Hansen?
Well, he that's not the accounting board. He was on the board of the AICPA. He was like a top guy. That's not really an accounting board. Accounting boards are state by state, and in DC I think there's one, bodies that decide who should or should not get disciplined for having been a CPA, issuing audit reports or other accounting work that is bad, and how badly should those people be punished. So we don't yet have a system of checks and balances where people who believe the public is being harmed can approach anybody who's truly neutral and say, look, this BKD firm made a mockery in Little Rock of accounting going all the way ended December 31st, 2001 through about 2012 or thereabouts. They issued reports for some entities that actually did not legally exist and were not authorized to engage in the activities that BKD said they checked. And then, leaving those things outstanding, they allowed Price Waterhouse, whom we passed, and another firm to rely on BKD's work and continue to have all this materially false and misleading stuff out in the public domain as the Clinton fraudsters, the crime family, was out continuing to ask for more money to feather their nests to pay for the living expenses of Dopey Chelsea and Hillary and Bill.
What do you think about Ocean First Bank? I've never heard of that before.
Well, they have one branch.
I mean,
At
that's
least
strange,
one branch.
isn't it? Ocean First, and they're using the same logo as Microsoft.
Is that Microsoft?
Edge.
Really?
Well, their browser, it looks like that.
No, I wouldn't know. But anyway, this is apparently where BKD is now based, having in New York, having bought a firm that was operating here and that did accounting and tax work for EcoHealth Alliance going at least back through the period July 1st, 2009 through June 30, 2010. I'll check to see how far back before that they may have done other work. But it's just every time I turn over a new rock, I find BKD associated with another questionable operation. And I can tell you what I'm seeing so far, again, in 3 to 4 hours worth of work, looking at EcoHealth Alliance, I am seeing egregious errors that should have been noticed by
Somebody.
serious tax professionals and donors. And by the way, why does USAID give, call it $50 million to this entity? I mean, why does the Defense Department give money to it? Why does Homeland Security and the Agriculture Department, the Interior Department, National Science Foundation, why are they giving money?
There's CIA cutouts, all of those things.
Well, but again, this gets to this issue. We have the brain-dead bartender and Biden and others.
She's getting dogged by Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
It's pretty funny.
But why those people try to pitch for more tax revenue by saying the rich need to pay their fair share of taxes, and here we see money just going down rat holes.
This place is closed?
You don't know, Jason. It doesn't look open today, that's for sure. It looks
But
kind of
this was
dirty.
a pretty good seafood place.
Oh yeah. It certainly looks a little bit dirty.
Doesn't look open.
So in the old days, you would hear at least a pretense on the part of the government officials saying, we are stewards of the taxpayers' money. We do not want to waste it. We are very careful with taxpayer money.
We don't want to waste it because we're going to steal it all.
Right. And so in the same breath, we see Biden and the Democrats asking for punitive tax rates and provisions,
Yeah.
while we also see epic fraud, waste, abuse, and corruption. At a certain point, the center will not hold, and people are going to take to the streets and say, we are not doing this anymore. Which brings me, I think we should talk a little bit about the tragic developments in Gaza and in Israel. That is a situation, I was saying to some people this morning, that it'd be one thing if we had Mike Pompeo, or if you don't like Pompeo, pick another Secretary of State you do like.
Abe Blinken. Oh, that I like.
Yeah.
There's none.
Okay, well, in the past we must have had one decent Secretary of State. But anyway, here we have Abe Blinken, and we have, who's that other guy, Jake Sullivan, and
I don't know.
Susan Rice, and all these crony, know-it-all idiots
Political hacks.
sitting on top of this. And the impulse of the Obama administration, you'll remember, and now the Biden administration, which is really led by Obama-era holdovers,
Absolutely.
was to treat Israel like a pariah. And while I think, to try to be fair to where we are now, I think it was tone deaf in the extreme for the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox Israelis to stop Arabs, Muslims from praying at their mosque in this holy end period in Ramadan, and particularly at the end of Ramadan. That was tone freaking deaf, and then to compound it by shooting them, and now by inflaming tensions to the point where rockets are flying. We've got buildings being taken down. We've got multiple casualties. And my takeaway on it is the last person we should be listening to, people we should be listening to on how to solve this problem today, are anybody who say that they are experts on the Middle East, because the Middle East has been a disaster
Forever.
for a long, long time under both administrations. And these academics who like to get flown around the world and paid honoraria or expenses, whatever, to study these things and hold sidebar meetings in expensive hotels, these people have accomplished nothing.
Yeah. It looks to me, Charles, like for basically since the inception of Israel, it's been a sore point that can be poked by those who want to inflame both sides.
Right.
And it seems like that's all that's ever done. You know, I mean, this building was blown up that has Associated Press in it. Israel says Hamas and Hezbollah were hiding terrorists in there. And I feel like that's...
Likely.
Yes,
in my view.
I agree. I mean, it's certainly...
But the question is the response proportionate? Is this is a big building? You can see the blow up on the TV. And they supposedly gave the residents of that building an hour to get out. No,
it's not a lot of warning.
Well, let's say they were going to bomb your building.
What are you going to do in an hour? All your stuff
Well,
is going
think
to
about
get
your
destroyed.
stuff. I mean, you could not get.
I
I'm
would
not
take
asking.
my laptop and leave.
Well, yeah, and leave behind B&H.
Well, you'd lose everything. I'm not saying that it should have been done. I'm just saying anytime I ever look at this, because I'm Jewish, there's a bunch of idiots who want me to weigh in and think that I inherently know something about the incredibly complex situation over there.
Sure.
I know very little about it.
Just started
Accident
yelling.
over there.
I
I just always observe that it's being used to inflame tensions on both sides. Both sides have a responsibility to de-escalate,
But that's not going to happen.
and it's not going to happen. And we got an idiot like Joe Biden sending money and support to Israel, and then sending money and support to the Palestinians. So they're just playing both sides against the middle. And now what's happened is, because we have terrorist supporters in Congress, and
You mean terrorists? You're not terrorist supporters. Actual terrorists.
Exactly. I mean, you know, when Laura Loomer introduced me to that document that Phil Haney, I believe, discovered, the explanatory memorandum from the files of the Muslim Brotherhood, it says right in there that they plan to infiltrate the United States by getting elected to Congress and doing all the things that they're doing. There's been a huge popularization of this anti-Israel movement, and I'm not taking a position one way or the other. I'm just saying, it seems to me, if we examine any European country, including this one, it's basically built on the concept of showing up, deciding we like it and taking it, and killing whoever doesn't like that.
Well,
So,
I wouldn't even draw that distinction. I'd say the history of nationhood,
that's how it's done.
well, going all the way back, I mean,
Right.
to the very first
So
people.
where do we stop?
Yeah.
And why is it that that is the country that everybody chooses to stand up against? They're not saying, you know, all these people who are protesting Israel, they're not giving up their apartment and going and finding the original indigenous Native Americans who live there and giving it back to them. Why aren't they doing that? I just find the whole thing hypocritical. I don't know enough about what's going on over there to make
Right.
any kind of...
But just
productive
speaking
comment.
practically, though, the thing that's interesting, and not that you weren't speaking practically, but thinking about practical political stuff now, Biden and Schumer and Pelosi are going to be goaded by the hotheads into attacking Israel and siding with the
Politically,
Palestinians.
you mean?
Yeah.
And
Well,
that's their whole entire base here in New York.
well, it's putting them. People talk about how Trump is tearing apart the Republican Party. I think AOC and Tlaib and those people in the dumb squad have for a while been tearing apart the Democratic Party.
Ilhan Omar.
Ilhan Omar. Why don't can we go down this way, Jason?
Sure.
Then we'll go across like 25th or something.
Sure.
Nice long walk.
Buildings being built, Charles.
What?
A lot of new construction.
Yeah, just the thing you want when there are people leaving the city.
That's what I mean. Aren't some of these things going to default and not be able to, like, aren't a lot of the loans based on selling the thing before it's done?
Well, no. So what, with interest rates as low as they are, what property owners do, particularly if they have leave to take, say, a 6-10-story building and turn it into a 30-story building, they get a construction loan, where they don't have to pay interest during construction or principal, and they turn an asset which may be worth $40 million into something that notionally could be worth $300, and they hope that the turnaround will happen in time for them to catch the wave.
Right.
And that's
also kind of like catching a falling knife.
exactly. But
Hey,
that's
look, Brick Oven Pizza 33. Are we on 33rd Street?
we are, Jason. I think you're going to have to move to 33rd Street, or you're going to have to insist that all mail goes to your address is going to be Jason Goodman. You should live on the 33rd floor
You
of.
just reminded me of something.
What's that?
So Matt Gaetz is in an increasing wave of trouble that seems to be expanding. That guy, was his name Greenberg or whatever,
Yeah.
who was his accomplice or something? So that guy, do you know how many counts they had against him? How many charges?
33.
Yes.
Well, Matt Gaetz, I think, you're innocent till proven guilty. Let's see what the charges really are. But it certainly, he's not having probably the easiest of conversations with his fiancée trying to explain this.
Oh, is he engaged? That
Yeah.
might be over. It's like, hey, what's all this everybody's saying about hookers? Oh, yeah, they're just joking.
What about the cocaine part?
Well, you know, I just like the way it smells. That wasn't. Didn't Clinton say that at one point? He just likes to smell it.
Did he really say that?
I don't know. Maybe.
He said he didn't inhale
Probably should
marijuana. I don't know about the not
Yeah.
disliking the way coke smells.
I think that's a joke.
It's a nice.
No,
nice,
oh wait,
let's
look.
keep
Here's
walking.
another
Rather quickly,
CBD
Jason.
store.
Oh, can I get on camera, please?
Sure thing.
Let's keep going.
So
Careful.
some people want to be on camera, Charles. Then we got more U-Hauls down here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You too.
Well, that was at least some pleasant conversation.
What did he say?
He said, have a good day. He likes your hat.
People like the hat.
People like the hat. I think this is a new bed and bath.
It's beyond that.
It's beyond that, right?
So this is the neighborhood. I lived in this neighborhood from 1982 or 3. I think it was 83 to 88. And with the exception of the modern buildings that you see, most of these old buildings were just the way you see them. There weren't back then, now almost 40 years ago, there weren't street carts like this. Certainly not this advanced, with anti-insect lights and
I think those are just LEDs to light up
make the
produce.
food look eatable, edible,
Yeah.
edible.
Charles, it's really disheartening to see all over the city how many businesses are closed.
Well, I mean, you don't like living in the rotten apple?
You know, everybody knows that I started that road trip on the basis of wanting to find someplace else to live, but so far, before it got temporarily cut short by a bashing to the rear end
Twice.
of the car. Well, I didn't go into too much detail about the second thing, but when I was driving to Colorado, I was driving through a massive blizzard and had a very low speed skid off the road and hit a piece of wood that I thought did nothing, but that resulted in even more expensive repair because of some sonar thing that got hit.
Right.
There's a lot of technology in new cars these days. You know what? It occurred to me, Charles, when I was looking at the estimate, it's going to insurance, of course, but I have a feeling that selling cars these days is different. Like, I could not believe how Ford could put so much technology into such an inexpensive car, but I wonder if they're not having some actuary figure out if we get enough of these cars into people's hands, a certain number of people are going to crash them and pay for the parts, and you got loans and interest on the loans. It almost feels like they don't make that much money in the actual sale of the initial car.
No, they don't make money on the car. Typically, they make it on the financing.
The fixing of it when, oh no, look at this dog's got an injury. He's hopping.
Can't teach that dog a new trick.
Teach him how to hop. Simon's Hardware and Bath. You want to take a bath at the hardware store?
That's beyond. It's gone beyond.
Ah, there we can see.
What's this for?
It's usually done to wave hello to people. Those girls seem drunk, Charles.
You think? And they also seem less than 18 years old.
Dunkin' is now open,
That's good to know, Jason.
but then
I
there
think
they call it Dunkin' Donuts.
you're just too polite to tell me you really want one of those jelly donuts.
I don't really like Dunkin' Donuts that much. I do like Krispy Kreme donuts. Dunkin' Donuts are okay. They always seem stale to me.
So this is Dunkin' Donuts and DD.
I just don't understand why they would have. It's to me like when FedEx changed their logo. It feels like one day they changed everything. And if you ever saw a Federal Express truck, it was extremely rare. They made that switch instantly.
Right.
And they did not want any doubt as to what the brand was. That's a very unusual thing for such a big corporation to do.
Now this Jaya used to advertise.
Well, they say it's the law. That's not true.
Well, it's the America Swine Shop. Oh, America's Wine Shop. I'm sorry. So this used to be. I don't know if it's out now. They used to advertise this thing all the time on television late at night. Jaya here and uptown. I went to the one uptown. It was quite good. If you like Thai food.
I do like Thai food, but unfortunately, basically all the Thai restaurants that I liked and knew about have gone out of business.
Just all the Thai or all the restaurants?
Most of the restaurants that were my favorites are closed.
Now, should we maybe walk down this one because it's down?
It's fine for me. We're getting some static, but I think it might be from the avenue. So yeah, this is already helping.
The tanning spot, Jason.
Not into that.
Neither. The Epiphany.
Hill Rose.
It's probably, it could just be a play using the word Rose, but the Rose family are very big in real estate around the world and here in New York. They had like their kids, I think 3 of them went to Horace Mann at the same time as I did with my 2 brothers. They are a lot wealthier. The Epiphany School, I don't remember that school, do you?
I'm having an epiphany as we stand in front of it. I don't know anything about it.
You know, you're winning the Colonel. You're with me on the Colonel Klink Award. Hey,
I know nothing. Yeah.
Now, are you sensing that it's getting more humid?
I think it's supposed to rain any second.
You said noon.
Well, it was, but I mean, you know, I'm just going by what the phone says. It sometimes changes its mind. Uh-oh. You gotta watch out for that, Charles.
Pigeons.
So a lot of these people didn't get the memo, apparently, from...
I'll spot you some curry in a hurry over there.
Are we in... this is little...
India. It's not just India, actually. I guess it's Pakistan.
Yeah, it has some different name, right? Like Little...
Curry Hill or something like that?
Curry Hill, that's it. Because we're near Murray Hill, that's it. Curry Hill.
I like Indian food, actually.
And look at that. Anjapar has a thing above their windows that looks like the Bill Gates pin for Agenda 2030. So we haven't heard too much about Bill Gates' divorce since Wednesday.
Yeah, I doubt it's going well.
Did you see the thing that I posted on Twitter?
I'm not sure which.
It was a...
I did see a bunch of stuff.
I took a photo of Melinda Gates and I kind of dissolved
yeah, I
it
did
against
see
the
that.
photo. What did you think of that?
I thought it was well done.
But I mean, isn't it strange how similarly shaped their noses and chins are?
They say that it happens a lot with married couples, that as you,
Really?
you start to,
Look like each other?
a little bit as you age, yeah, women tend to cut their hair shorter, and then,
Charles, this is going to fall into the category of the formerly 98% of stuff that I used to talk about that you thought was nonsense. But we know in 1997 some obscure farmer or something in Scotland cloned a sheep, right?
Dolly.
Yeah. So cloning mammals, they've been doing that for 20 plus years.
I think, but if you allow cloned animals to have 3 offspring, I don't think anything good happens with that.
I don't know if they've studied it, and I don't know.
Well-
I mean, just what I'm getting at is the notion that you can take this, genetic material from one living creature and insert it into a zygote or whatever, and then, bring it to term in a surrogate and have a baby. I come back to that book that I was listening to not that long ago about Operation Paperclip. The Nazis were super involved in all kinds of fertility science. There's a separate documentary I think I've told you about where somebody went to Contigo Godoy in Brazil and studied what appears to be the work of Dr. Mengele in that town, where there's all this like 14,000%
Twins.
higher occurrence of twins there than anywhere else. I'm just wondering if it would be remotely technically possible
No.
that human clones could have been made at some point, and could you just take the Y chromosome from Bill Gates, double it, and make a female Bill Gates and grow it as another person in a surrogate?
It's so far out of my area.
It's pretty out there, but I don't know.
You trying to give me bad dreams?
I'm just trying to, it's any of these things that we look at, any of these technological innovations that are commonplace today, at one point were not possible. And if you were talking about, in 1950, if I told you, hey, so-and-so has a heart problem, and I said, well, why don't they find somebody who died in a car crash and take their heart and stick it in them, you'd say, Jason, this is not Frankenstein.
Yeah.
You can't do stuff like that. But then in 1967 or whenever they did it, now, I mean, that's common. Having a heart transplant, some people live for 20 or 30 years with that. How do we know Melinda Gates is not a clone of Bill Gates?
Well, I'll let you patrol that rich vein.
I'm not saying she is. I'm just saying she looks and acts weird. And the other thing is, so many people have a knee-jerk reaction to her. Have we spoken about the Uncanny Valley?
No.
Are you not familiar with that term?
No.
It was born out of robotics. I forget the guy's name, but one of the most famous Japanese roboticists came up with this theory that describes the response that people have to robots, where if you have R2-D2 or something that looks like a cute garbage can with lights on it, everybody thinks that's great. But when you make like a Charles Ortel robot that looks like a rubber version of you, people are very put off by that because it looks close to real.
You're saying I don't look as good as the garbage can? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that with animation or robotics or plastic surgery or a variety of things, as you get closer to something real, it seems creepy because we can detect subliminally that something's wrong with it. And so many people have a knee-jerk reaction to Melinda Gates along the lines of the Uncanny Valley, where a lot of people say, oh, she's transgender. I'm not saying that she is. I'm not saying that that should be said. I've observed people say that about her. And I think that this is a response that people have to something unusual about her.
Well, yeah, I think all I know about her is her involvement with the Clinton Foundation frauds, and her insistence on being treated as an equal partner in the foundation and in life, with somebody who some say is actually just very good at acting like he's a genius, but in fact is a dunce.
I think that's the case.
Right. But certainly, like him or not, Gates has a lot more experience in business than Melinda does.
Yes.
And
like, why would he necessarily even need her in the foundation? I mean, there's some people who might be
Well, there's an argument, actually, that in these foundations, it's the argument I would take. If you're going to truly do good work, okay, sorry. Do you want to go to Madison, or do you want to go to this?
Yeah, sure. Whatever you want. That Galanda wagon looked like it wanted to smash.
If you're really going to do good works, go down that way, Jason?
Yeah.
If you're really going to do good works, giving away $60 billion or whatever the number is, you've given away enough money so that the foundation can afford to hire superb, experienced people to run it who are not Bill or Melinda Gates.
Right.
And so my opening position on allowing people to take these massive kind of tax breaks for grant-making organizations which actually promote the Gates brand and have provided a lot of illegal private benefit, in my view.
Tax deductions and whatnot.
Well, not that, only that Bill and Melinda get passes. They're lionized. They are consulted as experts on health matters when they're idiots.
Yeah.
So I think the laws are written, and they're not enforced, we know, apparently. The laws are written to say that if the donor derives a substantial private gain, which is not defined as monetary, any kind of an advantage or edge that you get by virtue of having been a donor is an illegal private gain if it's more than insubstantial, i.e. more than cumulative for the whole organization during its life of $1,000. And clearly, Bill and Melinda have both derived substantial private gains. There's no way, for example, that the Clintons and the political class would listen to Melinda Gates if they didn't know, or Bill Gates, that the Gates Foundation,
billions.
that they could, let these grifter fraud schemes that are run out of the Clinton Foundation and other places take some Gates cash. So they let Gates slide, and they let Bill and Microsoft off on antitrust violations, in my view, to take this cash not under the table, in plain sight, at various foundations run by politically important people around the world, not just the Clintons and the Bushes.
Let's see how the park is doing. I agree with what you're saying there, Charles.
Still here. This park, honestly, is so much nicer than it used to be 30 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I was about to say even when I went to college, which was about 30 years ago.
Oh, man.
It was 30 years ago. What I was going to say is that, similar to what's going on with Melinda Gates being elevated to some kind of status that, by the way, there's lots of brilliant women who do things on their own. Just being married to somebody who has a ton of dough doesn't necessarily make you qualified for anything.
Right.
And like when we were talking on the John Cullen show last week, people can still see it on Patreon and Subscribestar, talking about Susan Jewel, what's her name, who runs YouTube? I can never pronounce her name.
Wojciechowski or something?
Something like that.
W.
She was
Wojo.
married to one of the two.
Wozniacki. Apple guys?
No. She was married to one of the Google founders.
Really?
Yeah, and when you hear her talk about YouTube or policy or business in general, she's just entirely unimpressive. It's a mystery to me why she would be selected as the CEO of YouTube.
I thought you were an investigative journalist.
What do you mean?
It's a mystery?
Well, I mean, I don't know why. I mean, it's not a mystery. I'm being sarcastic, but she doesn't seem like a good candidate. She's totally unimpressive. And she seems dumb. I remember when I was at South by Southwest a few years ago, I saw, by contrast, a presentation from another Google employee who happened to be female. And I was so impressed with her presentation. It was one of the best presentations I've ever seen given by anybody in any industry of any gender.
Uh-huh.
So this Susan person and any of these people who are married to the guy in charge who get elevated to, I mean, that's not something to be proud of. That's cronyism.
Well, or it's the subtitled show, Married to the Slob. Not Married to the Job or the Mob. Married to the Slob. But honestly, going back...
Kids around in the park having fun today, Charles.
Going back 35, 40 years, thinking about this park, trees, I don't know how many trees were still up, but the lawns were dirt, decrepit.
It's nice now, it's a nice park.
It is. It's a nice place in the center of Manhattan. A lot of these buildings the office buildings were derelict, and this has now become really fancy. I forget which building Jeff Bezos is in. Is it this one here, 10?
Yeah, that's where they had that garbage pile over Christmas, remember, from Amazon and stuff.
All right, so we want to go that way?
Sure.
But truly, if I were determined to stay in New York for, I don't know, whatever reason, but I was given a choice between prison and here, I probably would think about living around here. Because in time, it used to be, prior to the pandemic, there really, as you know better, there were many, many great restaurants, most of which are currently out.
Yeah.
And this was a place, people were returning to this. This is really not exactly the center, but arguably the center of Manhattan. I think 23rd Street is one of the widest east-west streets. And here you're sort of, Fifth Avenue is in theory the center of that wide crosstown street. So you're pretty centrally located. You're not far from the Village. From, as you saw, we just walked down from Herald Square and Times Square. So it's pretty convenient. And especially if your children are grown and you don't have to think about putting them into school.
Yeah.
This is a good place to live, in theory, before you start thinking about commerce.
Hopefully that resumed it. But it strikes me as the type of thing, you know, when somebody's working on some construction project and they say, oh, 2 weeks. And there was even a movie about that. The Money Pit, which we did, the Crony Pit, where we were talking about Matt Schlapp. And I keep tweeting at Matt Schlapp to come on the show and answer these allegations.
Oh, he's way too important to do that.
Well, he's not going to do that, I'm sure.
Well, we could talk about it. Glad you brought that up. So when I was in Washington, D.C., I placed a call trying to get information about the American Conservative Union Foundation, and I will give the blokes over there just some unasked for simple advice. If you're going to try to pretend that the American Conservative Union Foundation is different than the American Conservative Union, you might want to not have the phone for the American Conservative Union Foundation answered, hello, American Conservative Union.
Yeah, they don't even know the difference.
Well, I think they're protected, or they believe they're protected. I think that what happened is folks inside the IRS and DOJ figured out that they could only make a certain amount of money as government bureaucrats, but if they're married to people who are lawyers and accountants,
they could steal so much more.
No, their spouses can make money representing entities that get into trouble. And so long as they're not put out of business, their spouses continue, the entities that is, the spouses can continue to charge, in effect, protection money. I'm not saying that actually is happening, but that's the only thing that can explain to me why these obvious frauds have been allowed to run for so long. I mean, the Clinton Foundation is an obvious fraud, every aspect of it.
So far, every single thing we've looked at has been a pretty obvious fraud, hasn't it?
That's kind of been the reason why we've been looking at it.
I know, but I mean, some of them are like we're running into by happenstance, and then even, you know, cursory examination reveals fraud, and the deeper you go, the more fraud is revealed. It's just sort of...
Right, well, to draw, and that's a nice look. To draw the analogy, if you said a foundation was like a car, you would expect, if you call something a car, you would expect it to have engine,
wheels,
brakes, a gas tank, a windshield, window wipers,
tires.
things. Yeah. And if you just take a cursory look at the car and it doesn't have the gas tank and it doesn't have this and it doesn't, this is lovely.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, and then somebody said, hey, out of our left there.
I know.
What a wreck, the whole place, Charles.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And this is actually, I mean, let's not reveal exactly, let's keep going. I don't want to get too close. There's a lot of food. And
it stinks over here.
That's why I don't want to get too close to it. This, without revealing precisely where we are, I mean, this is a nice part of Manhattan.
Well, I
It
don't know
is.
if we can really say that.
Well, no, I think it is if you were to rent a place or try to buy a co-op.
What we can say is that right next to all that is this brand new and obviously expensive Renaissance hotel.
Right. They got to be delighted.
Is trying to be fancy.
They have to be delighted. You know. Did you have a nice stay at our hotel? Did you like our...
How'd you like all the garbage?
Did you like the garbage pile out front? We had to close the kitchen and the bar, but we made up for that by piling garbage outside our hotel. So a nice long walk, Jason.
Yeah.
Yet another Sunday. Have they spiffed up that WeWorks thing?
I think it says it's for rent.
But they spiffed up that building. I mean, I think that used to be covered by scaffolding.
Well, it was some kind of Anheuser-Busch, like they had like...
oh, is that right?
What do you call that, where they give you $200 to tell them how shitty their beer is?
I used to like Anheuser-Busch.
Focus groups are going on over there, I think.
Yeah. Frank Luntz is running it.
Maybe.
Food for thought, catered events. I think not.
Well, this bar has been successful. They were one of the first to have an outdoor thing during the pandemic, and they put their TVs right against the window, and basically every time I've come by here, there's a lot of people. Although as I walk around this neighborhood, and even in certain spots that just by coincidence don't usually wind up on our walks, there's more and more stuff closing.
Yeah, just to finish a bit on the trip to DC, so I stayed, I'm not going to say which hotel, but I stayed in a very nice hotel. And I finished on Thursday night with what I was doing, and I said, I'll just have a quick drink in the bar. I sit in the bar, and the conversation of these Washington pukes is just so disgusting that I just had one drink and went up to my room.
What did they say?
It was just, it was like a work romance type thing. These are two, a man and a woman, who were obviously, I think, married to other people.
Oh, wow.
And they were trying to impress one another and flirting and talking about all the important people they knew in Washington, D.C. This is nice.
That does not look like the type of guy who's usually dumpster diving for those kind of bottles.
But the point is here, that's, how safe can that be? You gotta wear a mask, but anybody can rummage through garbage.
Yeah.
And we only clean our stuff before we put it in garbage. We don't put stuff in there. For example, people with dogs throw, and cats will throw the litter into things like that.
It's crazy.
It is indeed. Sorry.
It's okay.
Want some fabric?
This place used to be in the coffee place, and actually that's where I bought the blue screen fabric for the thing that we did where you're in the cartoon with Hillary Clinton. Incidentally, that cartoon, I'm pretty sure, has been wiped off the internet. I gotta put
Why?
that. Well, because it was on the channel. A lot of the channels have been taken down, so I've got to restore it.
I've got to bring that one back. That's my first cartoon.
I will. I'll put it back. I have been restoring the Sunday with Charles episodes and the David Hawkins episodes and a lot of the other episodes to the Sunday with Charles YouTube channel. There is a David Hawkins Reverse CSI YouTube channel. I'm going to be making a High Dive with Lee Stranahan YouTube channel. I'm going to be making a John Cullen Investigates YouTube channel, because all these social engineers have been trying to knock out the channels, and I'm doing everything I can to make that difficult for them. I want to thank everybody who's been helping me do that by becoming sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. There's still a lot of sponsor exclusive material on there, so if you haven't seen it, get on there. Helps me keep the show going. And Charles, I'm really getting to a critical point in two of the lawsuits. I don't want to talk about it too much because it seems to upset a variety of different people who are involved. The only person I'm really concerned about upsetting is the judge, so I don't want to do that right now.
We'll leave it to another day.
We'll leave it to another day. People can go to crowdsourcethetruth.com to sponsor the Counter Lawfare Fund, and I hope you will do that. I actually will not see everybody with a new show tomorrow, but I'll be back on Tuesday. And Charles, on Wednesday, we'll see if we're going to do a deep dive in the studio or another walk around. The weather and a lot of other things will determine. But thanks for